The clock struck exactly 6:04 a.m. this morning, April 30th, 2026, and in that single heartbeat, the deceptive silence of Surigao del Sur was shattered by a violent, tectonic roar that could signal the beginning of a new, dangerous era for the Philippines. This was not a deep, distant rumble, but a raw, shallow 5.0 magnitude strike occurring only 10 kilometers beneath the surface of Cagwait, a depth so thin that the Earth's crust offered almost no protection from the kinetic energy exploding upward into the homes and lives of thousands. As the ground began to roll like a liquid ocean, intensity 2 shaking was immediately felt in Tandag City and Bislig City, serving as a chilling reminder that the Philippine Trench is not a dead monument of geography, but a living, breathing monster that is currently losing its grip on the immense pressure building beneath the Mindanao region. We are standing at a geological crossroads because a 5.0 at such a shallow depth is often the signature of a precursor event, a warning shot fired by the Pacific Ring of Fire that has every seismologist from Phivolcs to the USGS on high alert. You have to understand that the Philippines is caught in a tectonic vice, a subduction zone where the Philippine sea plate is relentlessly diving beneath the Sunda plate, and today's rupture near Arasasan is a direct result of that silent, invisible war for dominance. For years, the shadow of the Big One has loomed over this archipelago, a predicted 7.2 magnitude catastrophe that could change the face of the nation forever. And every time the ground shakes like it did today, the same terrifying question echoes through the streets. Is this it? Is this the moment the pressure finally becomes too much for the crust to bear? The data from this morning shows a tectonic origin, meaning this wasn't a volcanic fluke, but a structural break in the very foundation of the island, and with the official warning of aftershocks already in effect, the danger is far from over, because the first quake often only weakens the fault line for a second, more devastating movement. We must look at the history of this region, remembering the massive swarms of late 2025 and the constant seismic activity that has turned Mindanao into one of the most volatile places on the planet, forcing every citizen to live in a constant state of readiness. This is why the advice from the Department of Science and Technology is no longer just a suggestion, but a survival manual that must be followed with absolute precision. Drop, cover, and hold isn't just a drill when the ceiling above you is groaning under the weight of a shifting planet. You need to check your emergency go bags right now, verify your evacuation routes, and stay glued to official channels because the wildfire of misinformation can be just as deadly as the earthquake itself. As we analyze the telemetry from the Cagwait monitoring stations, we see a pattern of stress accumulation that suggests the Philippine Trench is under a level of tension we haven't seen in decades. And while the 5.0 today didn't bring down skyscrapers, it may have cracked the final pillar of stability that was holding back a much larger disaster. The resilience of the Filipino people is legendary, but even the strongest spirit cannot stop the movement of plates that weigh trillions of tons, and as the sun rises over a shaken Mindanao, the air is thick with the realization that we are guests on a planet that does not care about our borders or our buildings. This event is a wake-up call for the entire Caraga region, a signal to reinforce structures, to educate the youth, and to never ever underestimate the power of a shallow-focus quake that hits while the world is still sleeping. To understand the true magnitude of what happened today, we must peel back the layers of the earth and look at the Philippine Trench, a submarine trench that stretches over 1,000 kilometers along the eastern coast of the archipelago, reaching depths that exceed 10,000 meters. This trench is the result of the collision between the Philippine sea plate and the Philippine mobile belt, and it is here where the most violent seismic energy in the world is generated. When a 5.0 earthquake strikes at a depth of 10 kilometers, it is essentially happening in the skin of the Earth, meaning the energy waves, the P waves and S waves, reach the surface with almost no attenuation. This is why residents in Cagwait reported a sharp, jolting vertical motion followed by a terrifying side-to-side sway that lasted for what felt like an eternity. In Tandag City, the local government has already begun rapid damage assessments, looking for cracks in bridges and public buildings that might compromise structural integrity if a larger aftershock follows. History teaches us that the Mindanao region is a magnet for these events. We only have to look back at the devastating 1976 Moro Gulf earthquake, or the more recent 7.4 magnitude events in December 2023, to see that the Earth here does not forget and it does not forgive. The science of seismology tells us that earthquakes often occur in clusters or sequences, and today's tremor is part of a larger, more ominous trend of increasing activity along the eastern seaboard of Mindanao. When we talk about the Big One, we aren't just talking about a single earthquake. We are talking about a total failure of the West Valley Fault, or the Philippine Fault System, a scenario that would see intensity 8 or 9 shaking across major urban centers, potentially leading to thousands of casualties, and the total collapse of infrastructure. Today's 5.0 in Surigao del Sur is a microcosm of that potential disaster, a stress test for our emergency response systems and our collective nerves. We must address the psychological toll as well, the seismic trauma that residents feel every time the floor vibrates or a heavy truck passes by. Because in a land where the ground can betray you at any second, peace of mind is the rarest commodity. We must delve deeper into the mechanics of the Cagwait event. Phivolcs has identified this as a tectonic earthquake, which means it was caused by the sudden movement along a fault plane, likely a secondary fault associated with the massive subduction zone to the east. This subduction process is relentless. The Philippine sea plate moves toward the northwest at a rate of several centimeters per year, constantly pushing, grinding, and building up elastic strain that eventually reaches a breaking point. When that point is reached, the energy is released in the form of seismic waves. And today, that breaking point was located just off the coast of Asan. The geography of the area complicates things further. The coastal nature of Surigao del Sur means that every significant earthquake brings the terrifying specter of a tsunami. While this specific 5.0 quake did not trigger a tsunami warning due to its magnitude and local characteristics, the memory of the sea receding and returning as a wall of water is never far from the minds of those living in Cagwait and Hinatuan. We have to examine the preparedness of the local disaster risk reduction and management offices. Are the evacuation centers fortified? Is the communication network robust enough to survive a total blackout? Today's quake happened in the early morning, but what if it had happened at midnight? Or during a heavy monsoon when the ground is already saturated and prone to landslides? The shallow depth of 10 kilometers significantly increases the risk of soil liquefaction, a phenomenon where saturated soil loses its strength and acts like a liquid, causing buildings to tilt or sink. In areas like Tandag and Bislig, which have soft alluvial soils, this is a major concern that urban planners must account for. As we move through the aftermath of this April 30th event, the focus shifts to the aftershock zone. Seismologists expect dozens, perhaps hundreds of smaller tremors in the coming weeks. Each one of these aftershocks has the potential to be the final straw for a building that was already weakened today. This is why the instruction to stay alert is not just a catchphrase, it is a life-saving necessity. We must also consider the economic impact. Every time the Philippines is rocked by a significant earthquake, the cost of recovery and the disruption to commerce and tourism adds to the national burden. Surigao del Sur is a region of immense natural beauty, with its white sand beaches and the famous enchanted river, but that beauty exists on the edge of a knife. The tourism industry here depends on safety, and today's quake serves as a reminder that nature is the ultimate authority in this paradise. Looking at the global context, the Philippines is one of the most disaster-prone countries in the world, not just because of earthquakes, but also because of the 20-plus typhoons that hit every year. This multi-hazard environment creates a unique challenge for the people of Mindanao. They are resilient by necessity, built to endure the unendurable. But how much can a community take before the foundation, literally and figuratively, begins to crumble? We need to look at the technology being used to monitor these threats. Phivolcs has made incredible strides in deploying new seismic stations and using satellite data to track ground deformation. But the truth is that we still cannot predict the exact time or location of an earthquake. We are playing a game of probability against a dealer who never loses. The 5.0 quake today is a data point, a warning, and a tragedy avoided all at once. It forces us to confront our vulnerability. It forces the national government to reconsider budget allocations for disaster resilience. It forces every family in the impact zone to sit down and discuss what they will do if the shaking doesn't stop next time. We must continue to analyze the rupture pattern of the April 30th event. Was it a thrust fault or a strike slip movement? The answer will tell us much about the current state of the Philippine Trench and whether this event has relieved pressure or merely transferred it to another, even more dangerous segment of the fault. The concept of stress transfer is well known in seismology. An earthquake in one location can actually increase the likelihood of an earthquake on a neighboring fault. This is why the scientific community is watching the areas north and south of Cagwait with such intensity right now. We are in a race against time, a race to harden our infrastructure and educate our people before the next big shift occurs. There is no room for complacency. As the sun sets on Mindanao this evening, the threat remains hidden beneath the beautiful blue waters of the Philippine Sea. The 5.0 quake of April 30th was a reminder that the Earth is alive, and we are merely living on its surface at its whim. We must honor this warning by being better prepared, more informed, and more united in our response to the challenges of the Pacific Ring of Fire. This is not just news. This is our reality. This is the story of a nation built on shifting sands and grinding plates, a nation that refuses to be broken even when the very ground beneath it tries to pull it apart. The earthquake in Cagwait may be over, but the story of the Philippine Trench is just beginning another chapter, and we must be ready for whatever the Earth decides to write next. This is a call to every Filipino and every watcher of the world. Do not look away. The signs are there. The ground has spoken. Now it is up to us to listen, to act, and to survive.